What is going on, all of you Nintendo fans out there in the world? I am Mega Amster. Thank you for watching this YouTube video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And today, I wanted to reflect on the recent Nintendo Direct that aired just a few days ago as of this upload. The Nintendo Direct that we had on March 27th of 2025. The sentiment online that I've seen from a lot of people is like, this was one of the worst Nintendo Directs we've ever had. And to an extent, I could understand why. I do think this Nintendo Direct was very focused on a lot of niche stuff. And yeah, a lot of Nintendo Directs tend to be there's something for everybody. I do not believe there was something for everybody in this Direct. I think a lot of it was actually very, very niche and didn't have a ton of mass appeal, which, you know, sometimes happens. But we have to keep in mind this made sense. Like, I'm not surprised this Direct was the way it was, because literally in, I think, 3 days as of this upload, we are getting the Switch 2 Direct, which is going to be focused on showcasing the new hardware, and I'm assuming new games, including the upcoming new Mario Kart. But what I wanted to do is kind of take a look at this Direct in more detail now that I've had a few days to process, and just kind of show why this Direct is important in terms of the hints it gives us towards the potential for the Nintendo Switch 2, because there are some things hidden in here, right? This is the final Switch 1 exclusive Direct as far as we're aware. I don't see why they would do another one at this point. Granted, I didn't see why they would do this one at this point. I guess just to tide over Switch 1 players and say there's still stuff coming out next year too. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I just want to go over a few different points here with you all. I wasn't a huge fan of this Direct either. There was some good stuff, but I want to kind of highlight some stuff that we did see. First of all, I want to talk about just third-party stuff in general. There wasn't a ton of like huge third-party hitters, and I think a big reason for that is because, you know, they're saving a lot of that probably for the Nintendo Switch 2, and at least to showcase it off. Now, they could still be cross-gen with the Switch 1, potentially, depending on which ones. Some may just not run on Switch 1 at all and may need to be only on Switch 2, but this to me signals like third parties are saving their big ones for the Switch 2, which makes sense. Nintendo would want them to help sell the system. They want to continue to provide content for Switch 1 owners, at least for the immediate future, but, you know, they want to save the big ones for later. And there were still some good announcements. I'm not saying there weren't any good announcements, but they were definitely... There weren't, in terms of third parties, not a bunch of huge hitters. The biggest one in my mind, honestly, was seeing games like Patapon and Everybody Golf, which are PlayStation games on Switch. Like, that was pretty neat to see. Dragon Quest HD 2D Remake was also pretty good. Shadow Labyrinth is a weird one that, like, I don't know if I'm getting this game, man. This is a weird vibe. It looks pretty decent, actually. It's just a very strange-looking game. I might wait for reviews on that one. The Gradius collection, that was really cool to see. But, like, collections, yeah, it makes sense. Small stuff like this that work out well. Rift of the Necrodancer, getting that launch Shadow Drop on Switch. Go check that game out if you haven't already. Love that game. Played it on Steam. Saga Frontier 2, yeah, Everybody's Golf. Marvel Cosmic Invasion was the other one I was thinking of. Like, these are quality games. It's not like these aren't good announcements. It's that there's smaller games on a smaller scale that are the perfect kinds of games to announce and still release on the Switch 1 in the coming year, when we're going to have the Switch 2 launch, supposedly before a lot of these games launch. But yeah, so definitely smaller third-party announcements, just hinting at, you know, we probably have bigger third-party games that are being saved for the Switch 2 here. But I want to talk about Metroid Prime 4. And I'm also going to rope Legends Arceus. I'm also going to rope Legends ZA into this part, because the thing is, I figured Metroid Prime 4 would be shown here. I figured we were going to get more details. And I actually did not figure we were going to get Legends ZA information at all, but it seems like they needed to fill up some space with like a couple-minute trailer. And I'm really glad that we saw Metroid Prime 4 here. It makes sense. It reassures Switch 1 owners who don't want to get a Switch 2 that Metroid Prime 4 is coming to the Switch 1, and it is going to be looking great and performing great still on the original Nintendo Switch. And seeing the new gameplay gimmicks with the psychic abilities, mechanics, I should say, not gimmicks, it looks great for Switch 1. I'm very curious why we didn't get a release date, and I wonder if it's because they're going to announce that with the Switch 2. Like, having limited information with these games, first of all, they're reassuring with both this game and Legends ZA. They are reassuring to us that these games are coming to Switch 1, but they didn't give us release dates for either just yet. And to me, that means they're probably going to save the release dates for I mean, I could see the Prime 4 release date being announced in the Switch 2 Direct. Maybe not. But especially if it's going to... Because I imagine, in my mind, Legends ZA is a holiday game. Prime 4 is not a holiday game. Maybe more like September, August, October, that range. But you would want to announce the release date sooner rather than later. But to me, they're holding back some kind of information. But what this also means to me is that it might not be a lot of information. Like, if anything, the most we get out of something like a Metroid Prime 4, let me go back to that, in the Switch 2 Direct, I don't think we're going to see much, if any, new gameplay or story, any of that in Switch 2 Direct. To me, this felt like an overview, and to me, this was the big overview for now. Put it in the Switch 1 Direct. Switch 2 Direct, honestly, I could see them using Prime 4 as the kind of conduit for backwards compatibility, because you know they're going to have a segment talking about backwards compatibility. We'll get into more of that a little bit later in this video. But the fact that they were very detail oriented with this, like, what, almost 5-minute segment here on Prime 4, that to me means that if we see Prime 4 in the Switch 2 Direct, maybe a release date, I could see a release date, and maybe showcasing as, like, someone talks in the background, showcasing the backwards compatibility, explaining that. But I do not think we're getting many more new details on the game itself in the Switch 2 Direct. And same thing with Legends ZA. Like, first of all, Pokemon typically does these announcements on their own, but also, like, the fact that they showcase a whole nother 2-minute trailer, like, what else could they show in the Switch 2 Direct besides confirming that it's going to be on the Switch 2 with a version there as well? Like, I think that would also be an incentive for people to wait to pick up the Switch 2 to be able to play these games at maximum performance. And maybe you show footage of it running on the Switch 2. Maybe not compare it, because then you make Switch 1 owners mad, but at least, like, show that, hey, looks better, runs better on Switch 2. You know, entice people to buy that platform with games that we know are coming out later this year that people are very excited for. So if we do see any of these two games, it's going to be minimal. As in, maybe a release date for Prime 4, maybe a sizzle reel showcasing some backwards compatible games. That's it, because they showed off so much detail here. It's not a guarantee, of course, anything can happen, but that's what these trailers signified to me for these two games in particular. Yes, I do think they're both going to be playable on Switch 2, as a lot of games will be, but I think they're going to not give us much info on either. They might be in a sizzle reel or in the background. Maybe a release date for Prime 4. That's all I'm thinking there. So just wanted to bring those two games up in terms of first parties. A couple other big first party games that were announced, though. Let's get into it. We've got Rhythm Heaven Groove and Tomodachi Life Living the Dream. Now, these two in particular are definitely they're the big first party games in this Direct that made me feel like this was super niche, because, yeah, both of these series have very hardcore fans, and I think they do have some casual mass appeal, but, like, they're not for everybody. They're really not. They're definitely quirky games that some people just won't want to play, and that's okay. But I think these are the perfect games to release late in the Switch's life cycle, as, you know, that cross-gen period between the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. So this to me makes sense, and the fact that they're launching in 2026 to me signals that there is a cross-generational period. That's because the Switch 2, we all imagine, is coming out this year, right? Is there any way it's in 2026? That would be wild. If they're having a full Direct in April, beginning in April this year, to me that means it's coming out this year. So to then confirm that there still are Switch 1 games coming out next year, assumingly if the Switch 2 is already out, means that there's going to be some cross-gen period of some kind. Might be similar to what we saw with PS4 and PS5. Who knows? I hope that means they don't hold games back too much on the Switch. I still feel like I'll be curious to see what that means in terms of exclusive games, because we still don't know. Is the next 3D Mario exclusive to Switch 2? Is the next 3D Zelda exclusive to Switch 2? Is the next 3D Kirby exclusive to Switch 2? The Mario Kart, we still also don't know that, but I feel like it probably is. Let me go over Tomodachi Life a little bit too here. But we still don't know. These just mean that there are smaller games still coming to the Switch 1, which you want to do if you want to slowly bridge over between your past generation to your current generation. And the issue that Sony had with that was a lot of the new games that kind of seemed like they should have been on PS5 were also coming out on PS4, which some people would say, great, you know, I can play this on my PS4 and not get a PS5. But A, you're not enticing people to buy your PS5 as much. Also, you're kind of, by designing, you have to design with the lowest common denominator in mind when it comes to these games. So that was kind of a big mistake that Sony made regarding that. Will Nintendo make the same mistake? I don't know. They're clearly taking inspiration from Sony in that regard. We'll see what they do. But these two games, at least Rhythm Heaven and Tomodachi Life, are perfect, like, little games to release in the meantime on on the Nintendo Switch 1, have it on Nintendo Switch 2 as well. But this also signals to me that a lot of the big first-party games are coming. Those announcements will be in the Switch 2 Direct and in the future directs for the Switch 2. And to be honest, I think a lot of them are going to be exclusive. That's kind of my theory, is that a lot of them will be exclusive. Maybe it'll be a case-by-case basis. Like WarioWare, maybe release that on the Switch 1 if we get new WarioWare in the next couple of years. But like Mario Kart, 3D Mario, 3D Zelda, 3D Kirby, maybe not 3D Kirby. To me, those are almost exclusive to Switch 2. Like, that's what I'm thinking. But we'll see how Nintendo handles it. These two announcements here give us a little hint that, we'll get bigger first-party announcements specifically for the Switch 2, at least announced around that time. And at least we're getting some smaller first-party games on Switch 1. A couple more things that I want to talk about. Actually, this is the next segment. Good, we're going right into it. This whole thing about the virtual game cards, I still don't fully understand this. Feel free to try to explain it to me in the comments below. Essentially, it seems to be a way to share your digital games between two systems. It's limited to two systems, they confirmed. And it's almost like, yeah, you load like a virtual game card from your digital games and you can share it with another system. This is great. This, to me, in my mind, is like, if I have a Switch 1, right, I want to give my Switch 1 to my girlfriend. If I get a Switch 2, I want to do that. Now, if I give her my Switch 1, we can still share the digital games I have on the first Switch, because I have a lot of digital games. Breath of the Wild, Smash Ultimate, a lot of those games I have, so many other games, Mario and Luigi Brothership, so many of those games I have, Echoes of Wisdom, I have digitally on the Switch 1. And, I'm probably going to want to transfer them to my Switch 2, but I can also share these games with her, which this is a good feature. It seems very limited is the problem. You can only load it on one other system, but it's nice to have that option. And I think a lot of this could hint towards the backwards compatibility feature with the Switch 2. Like, if these games are able to transfer between systems, because I believe they confirm that you can do it with a Switch 2. I'm pretty sure they mention it specifically. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they mentioned you can transfer a digital game from Switch 1 to Switch 2. And assuming that it's backwards compatible, which I imagine most of these digital games will be, then I think that'll be a good sign. At least to be able to, not only will it make an easy transfer process from Switch 1 to 2, but also means, for people who don't want to, like, sell their Switch 1, just give it to, like, a friend or a child or partner, spouse, whoever. That way. Oh, wait, interesting. Up to 8 Nintendo account users connected to a family group. Okay. Oh, interesting. So maybe you can share with more than 2 people? 8 Nintendo account users connected to a family group. Nintendo account. Interesting. I think it's still between 2 systems, but... Oh, lend a family member. Oh, never mind. Never mind. Okay, disregard that. I really thought... Maybe you can... Oh, you might only be able to lend it once at a time, though. But you're not limited to just one other system. That's great. All right, that's good to know. So you can either load onto another system or anybody in your family plan. Nice. Okay, that's great. That is great to see. And I'm pretty sure somewhere they mentioned about Switch 2, but definitely correct me if I'm wrong about that. But if that's the case, that means we have an easy sharing method even for Switch 2 games and a lot of digital games that were on Switch 1 to be on Switch 2. That would be really cool. But to me, this also hints... Yeah, see, the only weird thing is the 14-day limit I don't understand. So is it like there's 14 days and then it goes back? Like, that's a little weird. And so you both can't play the game at the same time? That's a little limiting. I'm not a fan of that. But it is something. It's just the Nintendo way of doing it. It's very limited. But, I don't know. It's interesting that they're trying something like this to at least be able to share digital games that way. So it's something. It's something. That's all I can really say there. But hopefully for the Switch 2, it means some good news in terms of being able to lend some games. But I also think it hints at, if the Switch 2 is roped into that group, I think that hints at that a lot of these, most of these, at least first-party games that we saw in that segment are going to be backwards compatible digitally, which is good. So that's good to see there. Last thing I want to talk about before wrapping up this video is this final announcement we got. This segment with Miyamoto showing up, and this was the weird, like, last announcement of the Direct. We have this Nintendo Today app that, of course, Nintendo did a mobile app. Essentially, people are saying this is going to replace Twitter announcements, and maybe it will. I don't know for sure. Essentially, it is like a news feed, and every day you're going to get some kind of Nintendo news. Actually, yesterday, as of this recording, was it yesterday? Yeah. Yesterday, as of this recording, they announced the release date for the live-action Legend of Zelda movie. So that's kind of nuts. So this isn't a joke. Like, this is legit. And they have fun little things like little like comics and like character profiles and stuff like that. It's like a little calendar. You can choose your theme. It's a fun little thing. We'll see how long it lasts. But the big thing that Miyamoto himself confirmed in this direct is that they will be sharing Nintendo Switch 2 news via this mobile app starting after the Nintendo Switch 2 direct. So to me, this honestly, the Smash Brothers music is fitting. This reminds me a lot of the like the Smash Dojo or the Miiverse updates, the Miiverse posts that Sakurai and the team would do for Smash Brothers, where they do these daily posts, and some are more significant than others, but it's like just a little bit of content every day. And it's like, I actually haven't checked today, as my phone's charging, so I can't check it. This is interesting. It's like, so is this going to be their method of communication for the Switch 2? And the fact that they said there will be daily Switch 2 updates, you know, what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to see enough significant updates up to launch? You know, how much information are they going to give us during the direct? I'll be curious to see what they do, because then that might mean they might withhold some information from the direct in order to save it for the Nintendo Today app. I don't know. I don't think they'll give us the most important stuff during the direct, but there might be some smaller stuff that comes along through Nintendo Today. Maybe like, oh, by the way, this game's backwards compatible on Switch 2 or so-and-so, but you know, would they use this for future game announcements? I don't know, because they're still doing Nintendo Directs. They confirm that in the future, but it seems like it's going to be a nice little thing. So, you know, instead of like a Twitter drop, this could be a replacement for that. I don't know. I mean, a lot of companies opted out of Twitter because of that whole situation. I'm not going to get into the politics there, but, you know, this is another way for Nintendo to communicate to their fans, and it's a fun little thing that they do, and it's on their own terms. So, you know, it's smart, it makes sense, and clearly it's no laughing matter. If we got the release date for the live-action Zelda movie, like, that's a big deal. And Miyamoto said, you know, Switch 2 news is coming to it later, so keep your eyes peeled daily. Honestly, if you're going to be following Switch 2 news, keep your eyes peeled on this app every single day, because there might be little tidbits of information. A lot of them are going to be insignificant for sure, but there's probably going to be a few here and there that are like, oh, wow. Like, could there even be game announcements here? Like, it's possible. Smaller games. The next Paper Mario is going to be announced on Nintendo Today. Just you wait. But everybody, I think that's going to do it for this video. Essentially, I just wanted to recap, like, although this Nintendo Direct wasn't the most interesting, it was very niche, it didn't have the most broad appeal, these announcements really lended some ideas, because it is right before the Switch 2 Direct. It very much felt like they had to, like, scramble together some announcements for the Switch 1. And in a way, it gives us some insight into what we could see regarding the Switch 2 announcement, the Direct, the process of releasing it, the games we could see and when. You know, it gives us little bits of information here and there. So I think it's interesting to take a look at this. You know, the Wii U had the same situation with smaller games right before the Switch 1 January presentation. So it's interesting to see. It wasn't like right a week before, but you know what I mean. It was like a few months before. But it's like, I don't know. It's interesting to see how they're handling it and like what insights it could give us into the future. But with that, that is going to do it for this video. So thank you so much for watching if you did. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the announcements overall in this Nintendo Direct, and what you think it can mean for the Switch 2. If you agree with me, if you don't, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next video or live stream. You bet I will be doing a live reaction to the Switch 2 Direct when it happens on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I'll see you all later. Keep on gaming.